man, it's been exciting. It feels like sometimes growing up, my dad would always say it's important to be the turtle and not the hare, meaning that it's not always the hare that wins the race. And so I don't feel like we've built fast. We've built by paying things in cash. We've never borrowed money for our business. And I think we're in a great spot where we at least know enough that we can help a few others. So I'm excited to jump in this morning. So point number 1, chasing money or chasing passion. Share some of your thoughts on that.
Well, I think there's like a number of ways to look at this. And like on the surface, like obviously chase your passions, of course. Like you hear people, but you like as you mentioned with the quote that you said in the beginning, like you hear people say stupid things like if you just find work that you love, then you'll never have to work a day in your life. And I think that type of thinking, it's a backwards relationship to work. Like I love what I do for work. I think both you and I would both agree, like we both love what we do for work, but we didn't create this career or this business that we're in. We didn't do it by turning something we love into a job. Like I came from an immigrant family, as I mentioned. Like you don't have to come from an immigrant family to know this, to get this lesson, because I know you know this really well. But there's an expectation that work is going to be hard. You just expect it. Like that concept doesn't blindside anybody in my family, right? Or in your family. Like we both come from families where there's work ethic, it's built in. And I think it's lost on so many people that want to be entrepreneurial. And one of the things that I would share with people all the time, and when somebody wants to do something that's more passion driven, there's nothing wrong with that. Like there's been careers and businesses, probably even industries that have been built on somebody's passion because they continued to pursue it until eventually it turned into something. But I think that a lot of times when people talk about pursuing their passion or getting out of a job that they really don't, maybe they don't really like very much, and they think that if they just found something that they love, that things would be a little bit easier for them. And I would say that there isn't a business, there isn't an entrepreneurial endeavor that if you choose something that, if only you chose something that you're passionate about, that it's going to shelter or protect you from the difficulties that are inevitably ahead. Like you need to develop resilience. You have to have work ethic. I tell my kids this all the time. You have to have stick-to-itiveness. I learned that from my wife, right? You have to have that. And just by choosing a passion or making a passion-driven decision, like that's not going to protect you or shelter you from any of those things. And I think that while that's great, a lot of times what people end up doing is they find something that they love, or they have a hobby or something that just really makes them happy. And I would just sometimes say, hey, keep that in the hobby category. Keep that in, that's what you do for fun. You don't have to make that into a job. Now, and I know that that's not true across the board, but I think that for many people, that would be good advice.
That is a good rule. I think the other big thing too is, I think if you jump on social media, you've got Tony Robbins and Alex Hormozi and Grant Cardone and all these guys that, you watch and they're getting on their private jets and they're driving up to it in their Ferrari. And I think that we live in a culture that teaches that entrepreneurship is for everybody, and that there isn't a greater call or there isn't anything more elevated than owning a business. And I want to say, as funny as it sounds coming from somebody that loves business ownership, I don't think it's for everybody. And the reason for that is, for an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to always be on. I mean, how many times, Yelisey, are we texting or emailing at night because something has to get done, or, we're on vacation doing things because they have to get done? And there's a lot of people, I've got family members that, they would rather have work hours because they don't live to work. Their job is just to provide, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I think one is, if you're thinking about starting a business, the number one thing you need to do is, count the cost. Are you willing to give up 3 to 5 years of being in balance to someday have more control over your time, over your schedule? I think the other thing that's never talked about is, I have a sister who's 18 months younger, and she has an amazing job in the corporate world, and she's in sales, and she has more flexibility than most business owners that I own. So I think one of the other lies is that if you're a business owner, you have access to all this money, you control your calendar, you do whatever you want to do. But a lot of the people I know that have the most time freedom have great careers working within other organizations. So one of the things that we're going to move into is talking about alignments anything you want to finish on chasing money and chasing passion?
Yeah. And I don't want to sound like I'm against chasing passion. What I would do is replace the word passion with purpose or meaningfulness. Because I think that's really what matters. At least it does for me. Like, I find it incredibly gratifying to do something with excellence. Like, I want to do it better than the last guy did it. So I would ask, like, is there a room within what you do for work or within what you want to do for work for you to have that type of expression, right? Because, sometimes I think work has kind of become like a 4-letter word. But I think that the labor itself can be the reward. And obviously, we have to have a paycheck, right? You have to be able to provide for your family too. But I think that if rather than pursuing your passion, but you pursue something that is meaningful to you or allows you to express what's on your heart or to make use of the skills and talents that you have, or maybe that you cultivated over time. Like, I think that is a better way to guide your decisions on the type of business that you want to pursue.
Yeah. Well, I would say too, you have to decide what you value. When we started our company, I had already owned a business, so I knew that business ownership was in my future. Because for me, controlling the culture and making the decisions was even more important than how much money I made. I look back, and when we started our business, my wife and I had a 3-week-old son. We were living with my parents, waiting to move into a new house that was being delayed. And I had a job that I was working 30 to 35 hours a week, and I was on pace the first 6 months of the year to make $180,000 to $200,000, which, most people would say if you can make $200,000 working 35 hours a week without employees and payroll, that's living the dream. And I would say there's a lot of people that, man, you're going to be way happier being a part of a team where somebody else has payroll and insurances and all those things, where for me, I was willing to leave those things. And I went from getting a paycheck of, $15,000 to $20,000 a month to all of a sudden having those kind of costs. So instead of that coming in per month, now it's going out per month. And for me, it wasn't a question of, is it worth it? I knew that it was what mattered most to me.